What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're at the Escándalo podcast with Moises BenHabib. Said that right?
Yeah, you said that right.
Okay, perfect. You know, it's so interesting, bro, because after just talking to you for a couple of minutes, I can tell that you're Hispanic, but obviously you're Arabic. You're of Arab descent.
Yeah. Well, we're Sephardic Jewish, technically. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. So, tremenda mezcla.
Yeah, just like everybody else in Miami. But we can trace our lineage. You know, we believe we can trace it back to at least 1080 in the Iberian Peninsula.
Like Spain?
Like Spain. And
that's where the beer comes in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, that in Miami, you have to have a beard in Miami.
Bro, you know what's funny? My lady and I, like, she's always into beards, and I'm here disappointing her. Like, not, you know what I'm saying? But it'll connect one day.
Absolutely. Well, I guess any longer, then I just, me parece un talibán. That's not good.
You're culturally ambiguous.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was helpful when I had a career in the diplomatic service, for sure. Like, being able to blend into different communities was very helpful for a lot of reasons.
And how was that growing up? Did you identify more as Hispanic, or did you identify more as, well, I want to say Arab, but you said Jewish.
Yeah, so it's more, so let me backtrack. So 1080 in the Iberian Peninsula, they were there until 1492. Mm-hmm. King Ferdinand and Isabella, when they sent Columbus to find the New World, they also kicked out the Sephardic Jewish from there. They left for the Ottoman Empire and stayed there until World War I, we think. It's hard to know that far back. They immigrated then to Cuba, and then the Fidel happened. And then my dad, like every other Cuban, left in 68, and then Miami after that. So we're Cuban, like en la casa se habla español. Like my grandma used to hit me with a chancletazo.
Of course.
En esta casa se habla español. De aquí para adelante no se habla inglés. So,
your Spanish is perfect.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I had to, because she'd be like, en esta casa se habla español. La única manera que hables inglés es para traducir una llamada, una carta para tu abuelo o tu abuela. De ahí para adelante, chancletazo a todo mundo.
So you grew up very Cuban.
Oh, yeah.
How was that like in Miami for you?
Oh, it's great. But, hearing about it all the time, you wonder a lot about Cuba, right? Because you're here, you're getting it day in and day out. Yeah, I had the opportunity to go in 2000 and I think 11 or 12.
Okay.
And I went through the university, but I almost got PNG'd out of my own family. They almost persona non grata me for it.
Really? What is it?
So persona non grata is a diplomatic term. Is basically when the country tells you got 24 hours to pack your stuff and get the hell out of here
before we
we're gonna take you, or we're gonna take you to the airport and do it for you. Man. And my God, my family was my mom and my parents were split. They were divorced. So when I told my mom,
I feel that I can relate to that.
Yeah, so they divorced when I was 2. My mom, my dad, they were like, it's like, Dad, look, I have this opportunity to go. I know I want to go in public service, either in the military or in the government, and I'm not going to be able to go.
Right.
I have this chance to go and understand what my grandparents, what my mom, have been telling me, what you went through. And he was like,
you shouldn't do it.
No. Te van a meter preso, whatever. So I did it anyways, and I learned a lot. I went from Santiago de Cuba to Havana. You met with the Cuban people. We had to write a paper, on what our beliefs were.
That was for school?
Yeah, it was a summer abroad trip. So the whole semester, it's like the history of Cuba since 1492, and then at the end of the trip, at the end of the class, you go to Cuba, and then you write a short-term paper on it, like what you think is gonna happen and all this stuff, and you get to see it make up your own mind, right? And
Por eso no sirve.
Oh my God.
Pero eso no sirve.
But it had a deeper appreciation of what my grandparents went through. Like I met my tío abuelo, and he was telling me about what they did to them in our family, what they took from us. I took them, we went to, and I'll let you know about this. So we went to, there's a memorial, I think it's in Santiago de Cuba, where Jose Martí is buried.
Okay.
And we were going as part of the trip. And of course there's Cuban minders and stuff, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we go there though, but I told my tío abuelo, my tía abuela, and they're like, "Oh, can we go with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Come along, not knowing that they don't allow normal Cubans there anymore, because it's an official memorial. But my tío abuelo and tía abuela wanted to come because they were going to show me our family plot.
Yeah.
Our family, where they bury our people. Okay. And I was like, "Yeah, it'd be great. I've never seen these people. No one in my family's ever going to see this probably again." So we went there, bro. They held them down. They were like, "You can't go in there." And then me puse como el americano.
Hey, what are you doing? Let them go.
And I was like, es que está pasándose aquí. I dropped my accent completely. And they're like, "Oh, they're with you?" I said, "Yeah, this is my uncle and my aunt." they're like, oh, we're so sorry.
It's so hypocritical.
It's so hypocritical. But then we have the chance to go there. We cleaned the plot. We saw the family.
Yeah.
Like, it was good. It was good for them, and I got to see it. But it just reiterated how oppressive that regime is, right? And like, they're just dying for freedom inside of Cuba.
I've been to, and I'll tell you, like, here is way better than over there. And then I look at like our peers, because we're not too far apart. You told me that you were 33.
Yeah, just turned 33 on Friday.
33. I'm turning 27 soon, so we're not too far apart. And people in our age range, like, that aren't politically involved, they think it's all un cuento, like it's all sun and rainbows and everything's all beaches.
We were followed on the island when we were there because we were one of the first groups back. We had the secret police follow us more than one day. I got into it with one of the secret police at a meeting. They're talking about how the Americans are oppressive, and I lost my mind at that meeting. I know, but I got famous because then we were forced to go to an event, because it's all communist programs. We were forced to go to an event, and I knew that, and like people would come up to me like, "Hey, tú eres gordito, que le mandaste al tipo pa, And I was like, "Yeah." They're like,
That's
"Bro,"
me.
they're like, "Bro," I was like, "They're like, bro, you're famous around here because nobody talks to the guy like that." I was like, well,
you stuck up. That was the American in you.
I say I felt the spirit of my grandparents and my family in there because they took everything from us. My dad's from Baracoa de Oriente, so like on the other side, closer to Haiti. Yeah. And they took everything from us. They took the stores, they took the house, they took took everything.
When you look at like your literature, your campaign stuff, I would never have guessed that you're this Hispanic. Like I just feel like, dude, what?
I know it's the BenHabib, but I get it all the time because we like, hey, bro, BenHabib no es un apellido latino.
It isn't.
But I mean, this happens in Latin America. Mira Nayib Bukele in El Salvador, right? Like they call him a Palestino, even though he's not really, I think. But but that happens, it happens all over Latin America. But
So Moises, tell me a little bit about what made you want to run. Why this seat and kind of like your experience in politics and all that.
Yeah, so why did I want to run? Well, I moved back. I got out of the U.S. government. I finished my diplomatic career, and I moved back home to Miami to put some roots down. My dad's getting older, reconnect with my family and friends. And I thought now would be a really good time to do it. So I moved back in August of 22. I bought a house right when the interest rates, went up. And as I started reaching out to some old family and friends, hey, I'm here, like, let's go and catch up. Like, hey, dog, I left, man. Like, I can't afford to live there. Yeah. And it was okay. And it just kept happening over and over and over again.
Like everything just rising, the cost of
living. The cost of living, one of my really good friends, from school, he moved to Orlando. A family member moved to like Ocala. They can't afford to stay here anymore. Yeah. And when Alina Garcia is the current incumbent, she decided she was going to run for supervisor of elections.
It almost triggers like this special election.
Yeah, almost, basically, because she said it in February. You have like 2 years to do this. So we have a really compressed timeline of like, I've been running I announced March 27th. So what's that? 48 days. Yeah. You have to get everything stood up. So we all started at the same time. But essentially, when this opportunity came up, I wanted to step in to represent kind of people our age, people who want to stay here, who are thinking about starting a family, who are thinking about, can I buy a house? Like, what's the next 10, 15, 20 years going to look like?
In this ecosystem.
And they're right.
Because if you look 10, 15 back, it's nowhere where it is now.
Right. So, like, if you're one of the older candidates and you already have your family and everything in your house, like, okay, great for you. But, like, what about the rest of us that are our age that are trying to, like, casarse, hacer una familia, do our thing here in Miami now?
You're speaking to me because I'm literally going through that now. Like, me and my partner were getting way more serious, talking about kids, talking about developing that. But it's like, how are you going to do that? Because, right now I'm a dink. You know what I'm saying?
Double income, no kids. Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a dink. So it's like, but even that isn't, there's not that much cushion.
No, at all.
And every day things just get more and more expensive. Yep. And not only that, the Miami market's just, people are coming here.
It's out of control.
So it's getting saturated by all the techies. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm a techie. They're welcome. Like,
hey, I'm with the techies.
Yeah, I work in the private sector now. I work for a technology company. Like, we build software solutions, and like, I'm a techie and I get it. But we also need to keep Miami, Miami. Yeah. We don't want to lose that, the sazón completo that makes Miami. Like, to be honest, right? Yeah. And y Goya, right? Like, it's but we need to keep it for us, some of us that are here too. Like, everybody's welcome. right? I think DeSantis said this too. You're welcome in Florida. Just don't bring the reasons you wrote it and left your states here.
Don't bring the Cali. Don't bring the NYC
bring that here. We don't want none of that.
So, but tell me a little bit about the diplomatic experience, because it's crazy. When I look at candidates and I learn about what their daytime job is, most of them are lawyers.
Right.
Most of them work in business to some degree, but very few have this diplomatic experience. So you work with different governments of different countries, or all internal in the United States, or what was that like?
Yeah. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I graduated from the University of Tampa. I have a degree in government world affairs with a minor in history and naval science. I then decided to I listened to my mom, and I went to get my master's right after, right? She's like, no pera.
Just go right away.
Like, she's not going to be like me waiting 10 years. I was like, okay, mom, we will do it. So I got into the Institute of World Politics in Washington, which if you want to do anything in the diplomatic international relations service, now you have FIU, they have a whole school, but at that time,
that's where I graduated from.
Yeah, they have SIPA now, which is a fantastic school, but at that time, it wasn't really there yet. So, anyways, moved to DC on a whim. Didn't know if I got a job. Didn't even know if I got into school.
Risk taker.
Yeah, took a GRE, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna be great. Got my master's in statecraft and national security affairs with a specific focus in intelligence and counterintelligence. It's like
AI, like
spycraft. It's spycraft,
like the CIA, like keeping secrets, understanding what they're doing.
There's a course called it's like threat intelligence analysis. It's like, what are the key indicators of a country before they invade, right? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you
invade a country?
Yeah, like, how do you do that? Like, we can tell. This is why when the Russians invaded Ukraine, our intelligence services would say, we know that on this day, at this time, with these people, this is gonna happen. Like, it's that kind of like how to do that, right? But I got in there, and I got into the State Department on a student program. And while I was waiting for my security clearance to roll over from the Navy.
Yeah, because they're gonna have to background check the hell out of you.
Yeah, but I got lucky because I had a clearance from my brief time in the Navy. So I was like, okay, the clearance is gonna happen. It's gonna roll over. So I was like, well, I'm gonna apply for an internship at Senator Rubio's office. So I did that for 9 months on the Hill while I was waiting for my internship to process. So state hired me. I graduated, and then for 6 out of the 8 years, I've worked in the office of the Secretary of State. So I've worked as a career official for the last 4 secretaries of state. And yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like you travel with them, you staff them on the aircraft. It looks like it's basically like Air Force One, Air Force Two, but it's not called that when the secretary's aboard. You facilitate their meetings with different countries around the world, where you're reviewing and you're editing and drafting anything that kind of official reads or discusses.
When you say official, like almost like ambassadors or like
so like if you want the Secretary of State to sign something, right? There's a whole process for how to do that, and it had it would go through our office, and we would have to read it, make sure it's right, double check it.
What would you say was like the most rewarding experience there, and then what would you say was like the most difficult experience?
Yeah, well, so the thing that stands out the most is I was Secretary Pompeo was the secretary. And
that was during Trump.
That was during the Trump administration. So I've served in the Trump administration, and I was in a couple other ones. But I went with him to Guyana. So I was asked to.
Guyana's going crazy with the oil in Venezuela.
And this is why we were there. So I was asked to go to Guyana. At state, I was known as like Bob the Builder.
Okay.
Like, can he fix it? There's no difficult problem that Habib cannot handle.
Bring it to me.
Yeah, literally. So. They're like, send them there. And the reason for that, they had never had an official U.S. government visit in 50 years since they declared independence to Guyana. The closest they ever came was during the Kool-Aid incident with the congressman. That was it. Okay. The most senior official that ever visited the country was the ambassador for us to Guyana. That was always there. They never had
very limited relations.
No, yeah, they never had anybody. And then all of a sudden, they're like, the Secretary of State is coming.
I mean, it makes sense with all this oil stuff that's happening between Venezuela and Venezuela trying to come in.
Exxon asked Hilton to build a hotel for them because there was no hotel that could support their staff. All of their people. They didn't have you. So literally, if you go to Guyana now, if you go to Georgetown, there's literally like a Hilton Guyana. And it was built literally because Exxon asked Hilton to do it for them because, like, hey, we have so much business down there that we need a 5-star hotel or whatever to carry our people.
I was seeing that that's gonna be this new emerging conflict in South America, because the amount of reserves there, and then Venezuela's like, no, but that's our land and that's our water, and Guyana's like, no.
Well, I was there. President Ali told the U.S. delegation when I was a part of it, he wanted, his vision is to make Guyana, Georgetown, the Dubai of Latin America. He wants their airport to be a major thoroughfare. He wants banks, investments, just like Dubai is, UAE for the Middle East. That's what he wants in Latin America, right?
Do you see that happening?
It could. Yeah, I mean, they got enough money to do it. The problem is corruption. That's always whenever you get a lot of money like that, everybody comes with their hand abierto. Todo mundo viene con la mano abierta. Vaya, hey, what's up, you guys? Right. Yeah. It's like when you win the lottery, All of a sudden, every primo viene.
Everyone's your friend. Everybody.
Right. But to go back to your question, that was the most impactful because, as part of they had like a welcoming ceremony, and they asked their, they want you to practice. So the day before, I did it as the secretary. I pretended to be the secretary and make sure I knew what he was going to do because I would move him around. And I stood on the podium, and then the band started playing the national anthem.
Oh, wow, that probably felt like
I started crying.
Oh, wow.
I cried. I was, because I've always wanted to be the guy getting off the plane, right? How do you do that? How are you the guy? I'm a guy from Miami.
Right.
My mom was born in the Bronx. My dad fled Cuba. And his son now is, essentially a U.S. diplomat representing America overseas, national anthem.
Started from the bottom.
And my dad didn't understand until I showed up in the Miami Herald, on a photo behind the Secretary Pompeo.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, oh, ese mi hijo.
I get, right? Yeah.
He didn't understand what I did, but he just knew I worked for him. I was like, I just worked for him.
Do you ever feel like when you explain, not just to your family, but to people, what you do in politics, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
That's a job?
Yeah. They don't, my dad gets it now, but you're right. Most of the time they're like, I can't believe that's a real job. One, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Right? But you get to be on the forefront of a lot of things. The most stressing time, to answer your second part of the question, I worked on the Afghanistan and Ukraine task forces. I was there in the operations center when we did our Afghanistan retrograde, and I was there when the Russians invaded Ukraine. And
so this is recent. This is not that long ago.
No, it's one of the last thing I did. Yeah, I've also done some really good successful stuff. I helped the U.S. and the Israelis do the Negev summit with the Arabs for some peace talks. This is before everything that happened. They sent me in because the Israelis really hadn't been talking on a protocol level with the Arabs. How do you do that?
So you have a lot of experience in kind of bringing groups together,
right,
and having them at least come to a compromise.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole point of kind of. I think when you were asking me earlier, how are you going to talk to? Because the district is massive, right? It's huge.
And there's a lot of range with personalities and constituents and those issues.
Yeah, so some numbers. The district's 125,000 people, 43,000 Republicans, 40-something thousand independents, 39,000
So very
Democrats.
almost evenly split with a little bit leaning on Republican.
Yeah, most independents, they'll vote Republican, right?
Yeah.
The district's plus 14 Republican, which is great. But there's multiple municipalities. I mean, it's a huge district. It's Flagler all the way to 222nd Street.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In Southwest, right? Yeah. And then it goes to the ocean. So 67th, 87th, down the 826, 874, US 1, all the way to the ocean. Kendall, Pinecrest, Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay, Glenvar Heights, Miami, unincorporated Miami, right? For the people that are from here. Mm-hmm. Huge, every Cutler Bay, South Bay have their own commissions, have their own mayors. And as a former diplomat, you get used to talking, right, and working with people. Yeah, and working with them, right? I generally believe that most people are trying to do the best they can, right, or trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, most people in these positions of power are doing it for the proper reasons. They want to improve their situation.
Yeah. Most people don't realize these jobs are all part-time.
Yeah, or that it's not really a career. This is more of a career. It starts as a hobby,
right?
And then it just becomes this thing. So, what would you say are the most pressing issues in 115?
Well, so I've knocked on a lot of houses already. I was telling you earlier, we've knocked on 7,000 plus houses, 7,500 houses almost, and almost if it's not my insurance is crazy, it's my property taxes are unmanageable. Or it's that, I can't afford, the inflationary stuff on, groceries is crazy. Yeah. Or it's transportation. I mean, essentially...
Getting from the bottom of the district all the way to downtown, even if you have that metro corridor, still...
Right. It's either one or the other, or it's all of them, right? Mm-hmm. Which is essentially the platform that I'm running on. You know, it's economic prosperity for all. It's, you know, lowering property taxes. It's actual property insurance relief. It's bettering our education system, trying to fix our transportation mess. You know, and like I have actual solutions. It's not just like those are it, right? Like if you ask me like, well, how are you actually going to do that? And I was like, well, here's what
I'm asking.
So it's different. It's different, and I think people should just do their research on kind of like what the candidates are actually saying and who's actually trying to solve some of these issues, right? We're at the point now, especially on living here, you know, on housing, right? That, you know, we have to try something. It's gotten so out of hand and so out of control that we have to do something. There's this whole exodus, and I put it in my first inaugural press statement. There's this exodus of Miamians leaving. We have to do something to halt it. The brain drain is real.
I've seen that in my peers, like people I went to school with that. And obviously it's mainly a financial decision.
Sure.
Most people don't want. I honestly think Miami is one of the best cities in America.
Right.
So in all my travels, I've seen that this is it. But it's so much easier financially to move to another state where your rent's half the price. Or the cost of living, because dude, cartons of eggs now are like $6-7.
Oh, it's crazy. I was at Publix. The organic 18 was like $7.15. I was like, what? I was like, yo, I'm about to go to the Redlands to my dad's house. And
just get it myself.
I'd rather just go to the farm and like pay the farmer that money directly, you know?
Yeah.
So,
what would you say is the cause of this housing crisis, and how can you start amending it from a legislative standpoint, or is it something that the government can fix, or is it more private? I'll give you this quick little story. When I had Councilman Jesus Tunador, he's doing something in Hialeah where it's really more private focused, because I guess their viewpoint is more like, who develops these plots? Who develops these private companies? Not government that's saying, hey, let's start just building up affordable housing. It has to be like a win-win for everybody, right? Like the developers have to win, because if not, they wouldn't build. But also the inquilino, the renter, has to win, because there has to be some kind of price regulation.
Yeah.
So what's the problems? What are some solutions?
Yeah. So, you know, Miami unfortunately is going through a couple things. We're going through a lack of supply. So this is just simple, you know, economics 101, right? There's limited supply, so cost goes up. So we have a lack of supply, but then also we just have, you know, people coming from California and New York that sell their houses there for $2 million, and then they find, you know, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 home. Like, oh, perfect, cash, here you go.
Yeah.
Right. So it's driving up. It's killing the middle class. It's killing the single family home market. Having said that, you know, we're limited by our geography in Miami. We've got the Everglades you got the Everglades on the west, you got the Keys in the south, you got Broward up north, and you got the ocean on the other side.
So continually developing isn't going to be the answer.
No, the only way we can, I mean, look at it now. Lennar is doing it right now. Lennar and Century Home Builders. If you drive around,
they have all the Homestead.
Yeah, they have all the Homestead. But if you drive in like where we live in unincorporated Miami-Dade, or like in 115, the couple plots of land they're buying, the 2 or 3
all Lennar.
Yeah, they're like 2 or 3 plots that are big for a house, and then they're building a multi-million-dollar home on it, pa que vale la pena, so they could do it. They're no longer buying these huge, 100, 200, 300 acres.
It's like, we're gonna buy 3 parcels, but put like some crazy thing.
Right, we're gonna do a $5 million home on it, and then make our money that way. But like eventually, that's gonna end. So the only solution is to essentially to build up, because we can't build down.
Right.
So what is that? I mean, you see it now in some of the districts. They'll buy a single family house if it's duplex zoned. They're demolishing it and then putting 2 townhomes on it. That's there's not much to do unless you start building up in apartment complexes, which gets to the point about public-private, building. Absolutely. Government should not be building workforce housing and so on. We should be incentivizing the private sector to do that, which there is some legislation that they have done in there. I think it needs to be a bit more, obviously, some more incentives to do that. We also need to restructure the way that Miami is built, and some of that we can do legislatively.
Like when you mean by built, you mean like this kind of grid, numerical streets. Yeah. Are you looking for more and
people in Miami know this. Like, you live on one side, and then if you want to go to Publix, you got to drive 3-4 miles to the other side on another part of the county. Right, the businesses aren't co-located with where you live necessarily in certain parts.
Or you might have to get all your stuff here.
Right.
I get what you're saying. Right. Or better said, you need a car to do anything in Miami.
Te hace falta un carro.
Yeah.
Because if you rely on the current bus situation down here, the better bus fiasco, forget it. You're gonna be in line for 3 hours. And I used to ride the bus. All right, when I lived here, I did not have a car. I used to ride the bus, so I've been in their shoes, and I get it. La guagua nunca viene. You look at your app, oh, it's gonna be here, and then it never shows up. Or my personal favorite, these huge bendy buses with one person on it.
Oh yeah,
like I'm just like, whoa.
They're massive. I know you're talking about the ones that have the little thing in the middle.
What is that?
And it's one person.
Yeah, there's one person. Or like if I go down US 1 in my district on the busway, and está encendido tráfico, and I'm like, I haven't seen a bus in 15, 20 minutes.
No.
There's a lot of I mean, we can talk about transportation later, but there's a lot of solutions, and we're not doing it. You know, it's not work. Whatever we're doing right now is not working. No matter what they want to tell you, it's not working. So we need to change. We need to change a whole bunch of things.
So obviously, being a state representative, you're going to be dealing with other Republicans, Democrats. I can tell that from your experience as a diplomat, you know how to kind of work with both sides. But how would you work in a Republican majority or in a Democrat majority, and how would you kind of bring together these parties on the topic of affordable housing?
Yeah, so let me backtrack for a second about Republicans, Democrats. So we have a new incoming speaker. He's from Miami. His name is Danny Perez. It's a big deal because we haven't had a Republican Miami speaker of the Florida House in a little while. So we need to bring more stuff back to Miami. And believe it or not, a lot of the Democrats and Republicans agree with that, right? Miami-Dade County is the most important county in the state. We provide the most amount of funding for the entire state of Florida government, but we're not receiving as much benefits as we should be doing.
Yeah, it's like, for example, the tolls that are collected on the turnpike don't stay in Miami. It goes straight to Tally.
Right. But the position, that I can see of the entire Miami delegation, Republican, Democrat, Independent.
I need more money in my district.
Right. So
give me what I deserve. Because
So full stop. Like I would be shocked if off the gate we wouldn't agree on 70% of what that actually looks like to come back here to Miami. And then of course it's don't let the enemy of the perfect be the good or something like that. If I can get to an 80% solution of what we actually want, we should vote for that. We should absolutely vote for that. There's no shortage of things to fix and address, and we have limited time to do that, especially to stem, kind of the flow of people out of here. The brain drain is real. It's more than just I want to live there, right? It's the businesses that they're going to create in their future and the people they're going to employ. It's the people that they're going to educate and train. It's the solutions that they may come up with by living here that we're going to miss out on because they are not here. It's that quota of...
Right, because if all these people start leaving, then we're going to lose talent. We're going to start losing labor.
Right. And we need those things. Like if you went to school at UM or FIU or Miami-Dade, you should, want to stay here, start your business. Miami-Dade just started an AI school. We're the only one first in the country.
People, it's crazy because when I went to high school, Miami-Dade era lo muerto, but honestly, Miami-Dade right now.
No, Miami-Dade's on fire. I mean, I attended, even though I graduated from University of Tampa and IWP, the Institute of World Politics, I've attended Miami-Dade, I've attended FIU, right? I had to do calculus courses there.
Took calculus?
Oh my God.
Hell no. Hell no. No, thank you.
I took calculus 1, 2, and 3. When I was in, because that was a requirement.
Parabolas.
That was a requirement when I was in AROTC. You had to do it because they don't tell you you're a nuclear reactor engineer until you're otherwise told. Right? I was like, sir, I'm a government major. Yeah. I'm a poli-sci major. What do you mean?
Yeah, why am I taking this? I could never, honestly.
So I had to take. So I've attended those schools and I get it, but we're losing on that talent that we're training.
No.
They live here for 4 years. A lot of them want to stay. Let's help them stay here.
And it's interesting you say that because I follow one of these people that I really look up to. His name is Saif. You probably have heard of him.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. So this whole point is how to preserve talent.
Right.
Especially for these tech companies because you need a lot of, and not just like the computer stuff, just in general, like the only way to grow and get people into higher positions is through talent. But if they go somewhere else, then you lost out on that person.
Yeah.
And it's very much like a zero-sum game because it's only a finite amount of talent and labor that you can...
And it's a real thing because it's beyond just housing prices or cost of living. It's these other things. El tráfico on la 826, right? It's how business friendly is the climate in Miami or in Florida to do something, right? Are my kids getting a good education, right? Is there good magnet schools? Do they have an arts program? Are there parks? Like there's these X factors of things that sometimes slip by the by the wayside that we need to pay attention to. We have to give them some love at least.
Yeah. So have you met with any HOAs or any of these communities where the people talk to you about like the absorbent price? For example, my mom lives in the hammocks.
Yeah.
And that was the one that was in the controversy.
I'm well aware of what happened in the hammocks.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, yeah.
So I believe it's and I don't know which representative it is, but I believe it's Vicky Lopez, who is being the proponent for this HOA task force specifically to regulate all these malfeasances. So why do you think this HOA fiasco is kind of like erupted in the last 2 years versus, because there's always been HOAs, but like as of late,
I pay a couple right now.
You know what I'm saying? But like as of late, it's just been this like horror but
Miami's always known this. Right? Like how many times have you heard our parents? No, HOA todo mundo está robando ahí.
Honestly, everybody has a bad experience with
everyone
HOA.
has always had a bad experience. And the hammocks, most people don't realize, I think is the largest HOA in the country.
Because it's like
it's massive.
It's like this massive. Whole like I look at it's maps like, and I look at like by like the squares.
Yeah, it's massive.
You know what I mean? It's like 3 squares. So
so I have a small business. We're in on real estate. I'm paying I think 3 HOAs right now myself. One of them is in Miami. So I experience it. I was paying $270 a month 2 years ago. Up from $220 a month, and now it's $418, $417 a month. But in 2 years. En 2 años.
You see,
de 370 a 382.
When I hear stuff like that, I'm just like, what does that go to?
And it's gonna get worse because right now, this is like the condo market is collapsing out here in Miami. So
like nobody's buying condos, or there's no condos to sell.
No, they're buying condos. So if you're in the market for a condo, you're gonna have like a $10,000-$20,000 discount. But be very wary of what you're getting into. And I say that because after you remember the Surfside collapse.
Of course, yes.
So they mandated a 40-year inspection. So all these houses and these condo buildings are coming up on the market. Look when they were built.
They're old.
They're all like 1982, 1984, 1979, and you need to pay attention to that. Why? Because those HOAs have been deferring maintenance on like these critical things, and when you're buying a house, suddenly you have a $8,000-$10,000 assessment on top of what you're paying.
Okay.
To cover,
you gotta run that back one time.
Yeah.
So you're saying you buy a condo.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of these new rules,
they tell you your HOA, they tell you your assessment's $270. But then when you're buying and you look at the paperwork, they're like, oh, but by the way, there's an assessment because we're so deferred on our maintenance to meet the 40-year inspection that we have to do, or the inspection came back and we have to fix.
You need to add
on
top another 10.
We need impact windows. We got to paint all this stuff. We got to change the wiring, the plumbing, whatever.
Basically, the HOA comes to you and is like, hey, we haven't been doing what we're supposed to do.
Right.
So as a result, we're gonna just bill you for it.
Exactly. And not only them, the people that live there. So the people that can't afford to pay it are now selling their condos.
Like the residents that are already there.
Yeah, which is why you're seeing a certain flood of condos on the market right now.
Because everybody's just trying to quitarse muerto.
Yeah, they're either trying to get out of it because viene la inspección de 40 años, right? They're trying to get out of it before it happens, and they want to, front it out. Or they're like, I have the bill, I got served the notice from HOA.
I'm not trying to pay it.
And I need to get out of here. I was looking at one because I'm trying to grow my small business. I was looking at purchasing one. I was like, man, this is a great price. And then you read the details, and it's like there's a $10,000 assessment, special assessment is what they call it, right on top of what you're paying. And if they don't do it, they're not going to get insurance. So if you have a house there and you have a mortgage, you're in a lot of trouble because like ti te hace falta el seguro para mantener
the mortgage insurance.
The insurance for the property.
Right. The regular home
insurance. Because like
an
insurance company is not going to write you a policy if you're failing your 40-year inspection. You need a roof, you need a door, whatever the situation is. So what are those people going to do?
And it's not one unit; it's like a bunch of units in that.
And then there's then it can spiral out of control quickly because if people stop paying those assessments, then if you're trying to buy there on a mortgage, right, in Miami with using Fannie Mae or Freddie Mae or whatnot, they won't write you a mortgage if the cap rate, which is how many owners are paying the HOA versus the delinquency rate, if the cap rate is over a certain number,
like if they see in this building that say 70% of the people aren't paying, they're like, I'm definitely not giving you a loan.
Then they're not going to write you a loan, and then now you're out of luck, and now you so like it's just this We're so close to all these little issues happening, and it's
all coming down at once and just popping.
Man, but to your point, if elected, I'm going to really look at these HOAs. If we got to legislate certain things, certain fixes, that they can't keep deferring certain items 10, 20 years to avoid these issues.
Because the HOA can literally be like, hey, we're not going to really inspect this roof until like 2030.
Right.
But they'll still collect your 300 times all these units for 12 years.
¿Dónde va el dinero?
That's a great question.
Or they use their rainy day funds to do something that they're not supposed to do. Right? They don't have to have they have some leeway of, how much can we use in a liability fund, so that we don't have to raise the rate, which is fine.
Should HOAs like publicly show their books,
absolutely,
or they should at least show like, hey, 30% of the money you gave us went to pay the gardener,
right?
Like whatever. At least like let me know how expensive this trimming is.
No, I mean we should look at the HOA regs top to bottom, right? Do we need to have more enforcement penalties? So if you're caught robando, right?
It's not a slap on the wrist.
No, it's not a slap on the wrist. Like maybe it's a felony. Maybe it's a misdemeanor. We should have, we can call for a special state of Florida task force, right, with the state attorney's office to like look into all these things. We can publicize, phone numbers for HOA mismanagement, like we do now. Like during the hurricanes, whenever they price gouge you, the state attorney always comes out and says, if you're getting price gouging,
yeah, I've seen it every time.
Call this number. Like, okay, if you got an HOA, like you should be put on notice that you either open your books up and you fix these issues, or we're gonna, because something has to give. The owners, the HOAs can take your house if you don't pay, right?
And they don't even let you. And they don't even let you like. And this is something, at least in my mom's experience in the hammocks, it's like, I can't pay my house.
Right.
If I want to do any alteration, I have to get permission from you, but I pay you to maintain this, and it's
madness. We were not going to allow an American flag in front of your house. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's wild.
Eso me cae a mí.
Yeah, that's a little wild.
Are you like, no, absolutely not. So we should relook at what rules they can and can't do, right? And I know a few people, they're like, well, I'd rather not pay the mortgage, but I'm going to pay the HOA.
Now here's where I want to be a little bit of devil's advocate here. Is it not a little anti-Republican to, and you see where I'm trying to come at this, is it not a little anti-Republican to put all these regulations on HOAs, and would it not, I guess it's like my libertarian side coming out, where it's like, government can't get involved in anything, that's your business, that's your fuck, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I would generally agree with you, except that they're abusing the system and it's hurting the people.
Yeah.
And no matter what, Republican, Democrat, Independent, we never want people to be hurt. So that's where I'm at on that. Maybe we reevaluate some rules. Yeah. Maybe we change some things. But están abusando la sistema.
Yeah.
Right? I'm libertarian on a lot of things. But if you keep punching me in the face a couple,
I'm gonna put my hands up at some point.
Yeah, at some point. So it's gotta, that we have to do something to fix that. And I think I since we've been talking about it, I wonder if that's the reason, like when you see like Lennar and these other guys that are building these massive complexes in like Homestead, a lot of them don't have HOAs.
Because they just don't even want to, because it's just bad optics too. It's like anything with an HOA now is taboo. It's gonna just like
people don't buy it. People don't want to buy HOAs.
No, I don't
anymore.
think I've ever met a voter that was like, "Yo, I really like my HOA.
HOA.
I love my HOA."
In the warmth, right? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So.
Okay, so just shifting a little bit to nature, our parks, waterways. I feel like as of late, Republicans have become more vocal about the environment, about el bienestar. What are some things? Because I know you have pretty much the entire water. You have a bunch of waterways, and then all of our green park spaces. Are you? And I guess I'm going to tie this into like development. So how would you develop? How would you allow development in 115? Are any already established greenways or parkways up for grabs, or are you somebody that says, hey, we're not going to touch any of our green spaces? In fact, I'll try to make more green spaces. Where do you stand on the nature aspect of things?
Yeah, so our existing parks, we should definitely keep. Those green spaces are wonderful. We need more boat launches, actually. That's actually a couple of boaters have talked to me in the district that we don't have enough ramps
or water access
to throw the boats, and then there's not enough parking space. So a few voters have actually talked to me about that. But when on your question about development, like I was saying earlier, we can incentivize, and in many ways, it's the builder's own interest, the developer's own interest, to include park spaces inside of those spaces because they'll sell faster. People want park access. People want to be able to like leave their house, walk around, go into a park, sit down, a dog park, and so on. So, actually like developers on their own, I think the market is going to show that people want to be outside more, especially after COVID, right? So like todo mundo quiere estar afuera. Nobody wants to be locked up in their house anymore. We need more conservation though. Like I'm a huge fan of the Everglades. I've been there a bunch of times. As a state representative, we get to do a lot of appropriations and funding to save the Everglades. And if you've never been out there, you should definitely go. It's a beautiful thing. I've crossed the state a bunch of times driving, and honestly, it's like one of the best sunsets I've ever seen in the world is through the Everglades. So I'm big on conservation. We should be able to lower some the registration fees for like hunters and licenses and so on. But we also need to solve some of these issues we're facing. The python situation in the Everglades. There's no more deer. There's no more Everglades deer around. It's a real problem out there. And then just dovetailing that with the water stuff, which also kind of affects insurance. I saw. It's an amazing place. Her name is Anya Freeman. She's 3D printing livable seawalls. Right.
So that erosion and the water doesn't come up.
So basically, right now they're made with like the low grade cement, and so on. They erode after a couple years. They're not really safe for the environment as they start to decay. Mm-hmm. But she's 3D printing livable seawalls. So like they have spaces where like fish and coral can latch onto, and then create an artificial kind of reef. It's amazing stuff. It's here in Miami that we're doing that. It's the only one in the world right now. She's backed by Mark Cuban and a couple other folks. We should be
Shark Tank.
Yeah, but we should be deploying some of that in Florida. Like if you're ever down in Color Bay or Palmetto Bay,
like the Deering Estates,
it floods. And that's just that's an infrastructure problem in Miami, which is like, why do we have that? Like, why does this keep happening? We should be talking to to lean on my foreign policy experience. We should be talking to the Dutch. Their whole country is practically below sea level, and it almost never floods there. They obviously have solutions and stuff that we should be tapping into to do that. And if you've been around Miami or you go to Brickell, you're up to your knee.
Rainy day.
That's
so true. Like
I remember when Sweetwater used to flood. Remember when Sweetwater used to flood like 10 years ago? They used to be the newscast. NBC6 used to broadcast from here in Sweetwater. And all of that has changed. But any kind of water.
You said the Dutch, and I really thought about it because I've been to Amsterdam, and I'm like, dude, the whole thing is floating in water. Yeah. Like,
you telling me we can't do that here in Miami, in the U.S. of A? Like, come on now.
And then this new issue with the red tide and the red algae. Yeah. Are you familiar with like the septic tanks and all that stuff?
I have a septic tank. I am. I'm excited for when the. I think we're on a list. So as I understand it, I think it's more county right now
because of the conversion from septic to mainland
to sewer. Right,
but that's super expensive.
It's super expensive, and I think it's actually county driven. Basically, it's on a grant. I think the state provides a grant essentially, and then the county decides. They have a rolling list of like priority order of which communities,
which houses or areas need
go first. It's leaking into our aquifer. I have a septic system myself, and I'm kind of waiting I'm on the waiting list, right? Hopefully they pick our community next to transition. We should do that. We don't want our water to be dirty. We want to obviously get in the ocean.
That's the main pollutant of our waterways because all of that poopy, literally just gets into the waterways. The fish eat it. We eat the fish, and it's just this whole pollution.
And people forget, like Republicans invented the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. These are things we champion as conservation, right? And we should be doing more of that. Obviously, no one wants to go out to get into Miami Beach or one your house, right? And it smells like no, man. Like nobody wants any of that.
And then there's also an economic purpose of maintaining our nature because that's where our tourism comes in. That's
a huge part of the community.
Literally people come to Florida for our beaches, for our waterways, for the boats, for this and that. So if it's all mucked up, they're not going to keep coming.
I mean, you fly over Florida, it's all green space. We should be improving on that, and in many ways we are. In many ways we're keeping it natural too, but we need to do more to kind of protect those systems for the people that live here and the people that come to visit us.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about different policy points. Mm-hmm. What would you say is in 115 the biggest challenge right now? Because 115, when you compare it to other districts, it's relatively affluent. Most people aren't on the brink of being homeless. Yeah. So do you feel like these are more like first world problems, third world problems? And what would you say is like something that anybody, Republican or Democrat in your district, can get behind?
Anyway that they can behind, probably transportation. the traffic is siempre está encendido in the district always. But piggybacking off that, really the property taxes and insurance, and as a function of having people our age buy another home, like I've knocked on doors, right, and people, you see it here in Miami, they're like, man, la casa se parece un car dealership afuera. There's 15
because everybody's
people.
efficient. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so yeah, are they affluent? Sure, but if there's 15 people living in the house because 10 of them can't go buy their own house, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. That's a multi-generational, issue, right? And if you want it that way, great. But a lot of people don't want it that way.
Yeah, it's crazy because most people in Miami, if you're a homeowner, either have an efficiency, whether legal or not, or they
Legal.
Yeah, because how are you going to make this ends meet?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because I went through something very similar. So I had bought my first home about 2 years ago. And then, again, nobody in school tells you these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I recently learned out about escrow and property tax.
Sure.
And then from 1 year to the next, the property tax increased like $2,000, $3,000. So now your mortgage is an extra $600, $700. And I'm like, can y'all do this?
Yeah.
So I called the company and they're like, and I was like, no, there's a mistake. There's a mistake.
No mistake.
No, they're like, no, it's that you're negative on your escrow and we got to bring it back. So that's why your mortgage jumped $800.
Part of the reason I jumped in, my mortgage went up $1,200 from 1 month to the next.
That's insane.
Between the insurance increase,
and
between the tax increase. When I say people are telling this, I'm living it myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just a politician out there trying to do this. Like, I'm living the actual problems I'm trying to solve. And everybody just seems to shrug at it and be like, oh, bueno, en Miami, eso es como... No. Like, I'm here trying to grab a shovel and, like, fix this mess, make it a little bit better for the ones that live here. And it's a totally different approach that I'm going to try to bring to Tallahassee.
Yeah. Because it's just like... Even if you have a good job,
it's hard.
Like I think about people that like
I have an Airbnb. Mm-hmm. I have an efficiency, right? That the county, when they legalize it and everything. So I have an efficiency that I remodeled top to bottom when I bought the house. I took every last cent I had, and the only way I can even afford to live there and to live in the district is by the little. If I have it's an Airbnb.
The short-term rental.
Yeah, it's a studio Airbnb attached to my house.
I mean, you're gonna make, dude, and you're gonna make more on the B&B than if you rented it out.
And that's the point. And that's the only way I could afford to live in the house myself.
Yeah, because of the difference with that increase.
Right. And I just been going through it, but at the same token, I've had to experience the regulations stuff from the state, the 3 or 4 different fees. The county inspector comes in once a year to make sure that everything está cuadrado, everything is good.
With the B&B?
Yeah, they're constantly on me.
I've always felt like the government has always been anti short-term rental.
Yeah. They make it hard, and I understand why they do. They're also like, I have a 5-star rating. I'm very proud of that on Airbnb.
Yeah.
That is not what other developers are doing, and I'm not buying like 500 properties and just Airbnb-ing them. And you know what? I have a very specific, like, I'm using it to supplement my income to pay for my mortgage.
Yeah.
Would I love the other bedroom space and bathroom back?
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I don't want people in my house, but it's the only way. It's the solution that I have come up with that I can stay in the district and live in Miami and raise a family, right?
You got to play in the game.
I got to resolver. Y eso como yo estoy resolviendo, right?
Yeah.
And like but when I talk about these things, like, I am living it.
Yeah.
I am experiencing it. I have actually gone through it. I'm trying to fix it. And, some ideas are going to fail, but at least we're going to try to solve the problem. And right now, it feels like Tallahassee just isn't trying. They do, everybody shrugs at the problem. Everybody's admiring it, no one's doing anything.
From my conversations with other representatives and state senators, I get kind of like this feeling like Miami's kind of like the piggy bank that keeps Florida going.
Absolutely.
And then everybody's like, yo, you got to give me my cut.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, we can't keep treating Miamians as the state's ATM machine.
No.
We can't be doing that. We are part of the state. We want an equitable share of the resources that we need to use into this county. And we're just, occasionally we're not seeing that. That's why I'm so excited that, Danny's going to be the new speaker, and that the entire kind of Florida Miami delegation is behind him 100%, to try to make some of these improvements that are desperately needed down here in Miami.
The last one I want to get to is school choice, parents' rights. I know in your district you have a bunch of schools and a lot of families that want to put their kids. How do you stand on like charter versus public versus parents' rights to put their children wherever they please?
Yeah, so I actually think this is a larger symptom of public schools not teaching. Like, I'm a product of public school. I went to Joe Hall. I went to W.R. Thomas. I went to Braddock Senior High School. I think we should let teachers teach. And had we done that 10, 20 years ago, we wouldn't be experiencing this situation now where people are just like, I don't want my kid to go to public school because they're not going to learn anything, right? Having said that, like, I think parents have a right to choose where they want to send their kid. If they want to send their kid to, to private school, they can. They want to send them to Catholic school, they can. They want to send them to charter school, they can. Obviously, that's you look at their grades. Was it grade schools rating? They're all fives and or like the highest you can get. I think there's five out of five.
Yeah, they're A++.
They're A++, right? So obviously they're being successful by the standards of what we set for Florida. Having said that, I think I would be in favor of introducing some additional, whenever we have a surplus, throwing some of that money back into the school system, which is what Governor DeSantis is doing right now, into the public school system. We want our kids to have, they want them to go to music. We want them to have instruments. We want them to have, Braddock is the largest high school in this county, I think. It's 6,000 students. When I graduated, my class was 1,200. We had auto shop. We had Cisco systems for like your technical, certifications. We had, woodworking. We had all these wonderful vocational programs. And we need to bring some of those, more back into the county. And of course, that all takes, funding. And when you talk to voters like that, you're like, look, we want to have instruments. They're like, yeah, we should have instruments.
Yeah. I would say most voters, like, are 1 to 2 issues. Like, if you can get them on that one issue, they're yours. So what would you want to leave here to let voters know about you and why should they vote for you?
Yeah, so I'm running for the right reasons, right? I'm running. I'm from here. I was born here. I understand this community, and I'm gonna do my level best to bring the bacon back home to Miami to better the system that we have here, right? I will listen to my community, and like the issues that I'm running on are their issues, right? It's not my campaign; it's their campaign, and I'm gonna do my best to lower the property taxes, lower insurance. I also want to take the note, because we talk about property owners and we talk about, there's a huge rental community in the district and in Miami that sometimes gets, left behind essentially. And we need to do more to help them. And one thing that we can do is incentivize developers to create, and I hate the term workforce housing, but workforce housing. We cannot operate as a community when nurses, doctors, police officers, firefighters can't afford to live in there. So one of the solutions I actually have is providing an additional homestead exemption for public servants, right? Like a $10,000 exemption on your homestead taxes. One, to incentivize them to purchase a home and stay, but also we need them to stay in the community. No community functions without those individuals.
Those essential workers.
No, absolutely. And like as a public servant, like, they're doing us a good. Like, tú hablas con cualquier gente en la calle, like, oye, bro, no hay policía. Like, look what's happening in the Gables. They have half the police force that can't staff because they can't live there. And we need to do more to solve these issues. And what I'm trying to get to tell Miami is these issues can all be solved. There's not one challenge all these challenges that were created by us, all these challenges can be solved by us, right? Sure. And that is the entire point of this campaign.
What separates you from your contrincantes, from your opponents that are also running in this race? Yeah,
so, the other candidates, one, I'm from here. I've lived here for, even though I've lived in, I moved back in, I bought a home in Waterways a couple years ago. I've lived in Miami almost my whole life. So that is a huge differentiator already against one of the other candidates. The other candidate is what I was referring to earlier, where, we have not, and people our generation have not had the opportunity yet to vote for someone like them, someone their age, someone that understands what their issues are, someone who's trying to set them up for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road where they can stay here, afford here, live here, have a family, buy a house, start a business. There's not that many young candidates. Todo mundo just kind of shrugs at it. People our age are just kind of like, I don't want to do that. I am trying to help, right? I want to be the person that they vote for, that they identify with. McMahon, I've never had a candidate just go up there and be like, I can't pay the rent, I got an Airbnb. Right. And that's just not happening right now. It's easy to do this and run for this when you you already have your house.
Yeah, you're established. You're already established, and
right.
You can. This is more of a hobby that you can just kind of throw it at the wall. And,
right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to be their representative in Tallahassee. I'm trying to be their voice. And again, it goes back to listening. As a U.S. diplomat, we're big on communication and listening, even from the folks that we don't like, but at least we will, listen to what their concerns are. And I've actually told some folks as well. Even I've run into some Democrats and stuff. They're like, "I'm never going to vote for you." So that's fine. But if you ever need anything and I get elected,
I'm here for you.
I promise that I will listen to you.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to represent everybody, not just the people that vote for you.
It's 124,000 people in this district.
Yeah.
It's it's massive. It's beautiful. If you ever drive it, it's gorgeous. It's
no.
So cool.
I've been through the what is it? Not during the States, the Old Cutler Road.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful out there.
Yeah, there is no bike trail.
Yeah, I know. The people are out there. That's what I mean about the more spaces for people to bike and enjoy the walkways and kind of these smart design stuff that we should be doing. I hate the word. I think the word was it smart cities or something. If you haven't looked it up, it's an interesting study on kind of how that. Maybe we should reconfigure Miami a little bit to look like that. So. Yeah.
Well, Moises, man, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, guys. Make sure to check out Moises BenHabib. Said that right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I got to make sure because now he's running to be a state representative here in Florida's 115th district.
Thank you so much. MoisesFromMiami.com. You can find me on Instagram, Moises from Miami, or Moises BenHabib on Facebook. Appreciate it, Nadir. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. That's it, mano.